Hi there, Colleen Adrian here. I had a question recently from a viewer wondering about tips for first-time high school parents. So parents whose kids are going into high school for the first time and what that transition is like. And, I think there's a lot that could be said about that, but I'll try to sum up what I think are a few highlights, especially from the perspective of connected parenting and staying connected to your kids. So it's definitely a transition when they reach the stage where they will want to become more independent. And of course, in high school, they'll, even if they're still quite connected to you and your family, there's a lot more inclination, I think, just even being amongst their peers to start to gravitate towards spending more time with their peers and their family. And it can be a really exciting time, and it can also be a little bit stressful, both for them and for parents. It can be really exciting, of course, to see them becoming more of their own person, see them coming into their own and having interests and wanting to gravitate towards trying out different things. Maybe they want to join band if they haven't done that already. Maybe they want to, um, learn about photography or be on the student council or whatever school activities they might want to do, or do some outdoor education. So it can be really exciting time where you can support them to follow those pursuits and those interests, and find the things that they're really interested in, that they may not have done with your family. So that may be something that's unique to them. Um, Another point that I wanted to raise is sometimes they need support to navigate friendships and relationships. And what's important about this is that we're all hardwired in our nervous system to belong, okay? So we all need to feel a sense of belonging. And yeah, that's a necessary, something that we need, right? At a nervous system level and at an emotional level to feel safe and secure. When teens try to get that need met with peers instead of family, it's not the same, right? It can be kind of shaky because um, most of what I've seen that happens, especially in the public school system, but in the private school system as well, um, most of what I've seen is that kids tend to kind of have cliques and groups and stuff, and there tends to be a little bit of giving up of oneself to try to belong to a group sometimes. So helping your teen to navigate that by supporting them to notice how they actually really feel, and supporting them to notice how they feel with, Sally as opposed to Julia, if those friends are treating them differently, instead of telling them what to do. That kind of support can be really helpful as they try to figure out what kind of a person they want to be and how they want to be in friendships and relationships. So to summarize that point, peers don't love them unconditionally. We love them unconditionally, or we do our best to. And that's why it's really important for us to keep our connection with them as they navigate these things and support them to try to figure that out. Um, yeah. So sometimes, to make a third point here, sometimes the way you communicate with them needs to change. And especially if they're quite spirited, um, have quite a fierce independent streak of wanting to do what they want to do, or if they tend to be a bit sensitive to you or other adults making suggestions. Sometimes we need to transition at this stage of life to asking them more curious questions rather than giving them advice. And I think I've made a video about that somewhere before. And if I have, I'll post that below, because that's a really important, um, a really important new way to approach your relationship with your teenager who's starting to now approach adulthood. Many teens, sometime between the age of around 14 to 16, have a phase where they're definitely more sensitive to getting advice from the outside. and they tend to resist that, right? And we call it rebellion. And I don't really like to look at it as rebellion as much, although I have called it by that name in some of my past articles, again, that I'll link below. But I like to think of it as a stage where they're really trying to figure out how to have more autonomy and be more of themselves. And if we can adjust how we parent them, we can still maintain a close connection and relationship with them. And I believe the onus is on us as the parents to really start to make those shifts. And if we can make those shifts, it can really be a growth phase for both the parent and the teenager, where where they come into a place where they can be more of who they really are and can be more independent with some sense of responsibility and some sense of self-awareness. And they can still have a little bit of the guidance that they still really need at that stage, because in that stage of teen years and even in the early 20s, we know now from the current neuroscience that teens and young adults are still having a really big phase of rewiring and change that goes on in the brain and the nervous system during those years. So, so they do really still need some kind of parental or responsible type adult mentoring type support during those years. If you had difficult teen years yourself, if you had trauma during those years, or if you had a stressful relationship with your parents because of how they parented, maybe they weren't there for you at all, if they had maybe a substance use challenges, or maybe they were really overbearing and quite authoritarian, and that really didn't work for you. Either way, or it could be something completely different. If you have your own past experiences that felt traumatic or difficult during those years, it can be really helpful to find your own support when you're raising your teenagers through those years, because you probably will get triggered by some of your teens' behaviors. That's really common, so common, in fact, that I would say it's normal. And it's also it can be really difficult and stressful. It can be a little bit anxiety producing, especially if your teen is making decisions or choices that worry you. So you might have friends, or you might have a partner who can support you. If that's not enough, parent coaching or somatic therapy can be helpful as well. What else did I want to say? I wanted to say one more thing. I wanted to talk for a moment about something that I found absolutely the most surprising in my journey of parenting a teenager, and that is the grief. I was expecting to have some worry and some anxiety. I wasn't expecting the grief. As my teenager needed me less and less, and as my mother role changed. And I think one of the things that was most difficult for me was having less ability to ensure that he was safe, because that was that felt like a really important role that I had when he was younger, was making decisions that he, and guidelines that he followed that ensured that he was going to be safe to the best of my ability anyways. Nobody has 100% control, of course. But having a lot less control over that because he was making his own decisions, that was super hard. And I also had a real phase of grief, just as I could start to see the end of my parenting journey kind of felt like it was in sight, or at least the end of that phase where my son really needed me in more of a parental way. So, so I just wanted to share that. I know now that I've shared that and talked with others that that's actually quite common as well. I was really happy for him, and at the same time, a role that I absolutely loved was shifting, and I was beginning to see the end, and I had a lot of waves of grief, probably over a period of around 3 or 4 years. I did write an article on that as well, based on a journal article or based on a journal entry that I had done at the time that he was around 15. And I've posted that article below as well. So I hope that's helpful. I think in closing, I just want to say that overall, it's most helpful to really do your best to stay connected to your teen in whatever way you can. Um, and the relationship shifts. I will also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I've got a playlist about parenting teens. I think it's called Parenting Rebellious Teens, but honestly, it's for parenting any teens. So there might be some more videos in there. I'll link a couple things below, and there might be some more things on that playlist that you'll be interested to as well. Thanks for listening. I hope those are helpful.